r/AskReddit. What stupid myth do too many people believe? Spot reduction of fat. People think that doing sit-ups will burn fat around your belly area. But if I always put the weight on in my belly, shouldn't I always ducking lose it in my belly? Come on life, be reasonable. I'm telling you, I have a six-pack under all this flab. But strengthening a muscle group does make it more visible through the fat. I guess I'm one of those people. How does it work in reality? Somewhat related. When I was a personal trainer, a lady asked me if she could use a rolling pin on the fat on her arms to flatten it out. I laughed because I thought she was joking, but then I realized that she wasn't. Agreed, that isn't how working out works, but as a tangential fun fact, there are medications that change how fat is distributed in the body. Thiazolidinedians, a class of diabetes meds, redistribute fat from visceral storage around your organs to subcutaneous tissue, which is good for your metabolism, but can actually make you look a bit chubbier. People hate hearing it, but it couldn't be more true. Abs are made in the kitchen. Bermuda Triangle. For any given same-sized sea area, there is statistically the same amount of missing ships and planes, and a surprising number of ships and planes that vanished in the triangle. Sank/crashed for perfectly understood reasons. Went missing for a few hours, then were found perfectly safe and sound. Sank/crashed/went missing nowhere near the triangle, in one case in the Pacific. Never actually existed in the first place. Wow, I wasn't ready for that one. Anyone interested to know more should check out Let Me Know on YouTube. He has a great video talking about all the ways the Bermuda Triangle is really not some crazy void of mystery. Highly recommend. The origins of the myth are very interesting. You get arthritis by cracking your knuckles. All it is just gas bubbles popping. Also, some guy did a long-term experiment, several decades I think, where he constantly cracked all knuckles in one hand and left the other one alone. After the experiment was over, they took x-rays and tests to find that both hands were practically identical in terms of condition. That must have taken so much self-control. Good to know I quit my habit of cracking my knuckles for nothing. Agree, cracking knuckles is not bad for you, but anecdotal evidence of one guy cracking his knuckles on one hand has zero scientific credibility. Lol, I have arthritis and I remember people telling me this some years before I got diagnosed, and I was actually cracking my knuckles at that time. I believed it for a while, because I got the diagnosis some years later, making me believe it was my fault. I was still a kid. It's just a coincidence really. It's not related to why I got arthritis. You can suck venom out of a snake bite. Arthur Morgan could do it, and that's good enough for me. My cat bit a friend who was cat sitting for me. He tried to suck out the venom and spent several days in hospital with sepsis. Cat venom is the worst. There's nothing stupid about this. Ignorant, maybe, but not so much. When I was a kid, this was taught officially. It's not something we imagined. It was taught as first aid. To tourniquet the wound, also, to slow down the propagation of the venom. I just learned this should not be done. Wait. This is news to me. That human beings only use 10% of their brain. Good grief, I can't listen to people who say this is true. The worst thing is, my teacher in elementary school thinks that humans only use 15% of their brain, and the reason Albert Einstein, for example, was super smart is that he used about 30% of his brain. The biggest amount of bullshit I've ever heard, and the person saying it is a science teacher. Some of the ones I know do. Wasn't there a movie with Scarlett Johansson about this? That it takes 7 years to digest gum if you swallow it. My BF told me that when he was a kid he thought there were gears inside him that would get jammed if he swallowed gum, and then his gears wouldn't work for 7 years. You actually can't digest gum, but swallowed gum passes through your digestive system with the rest of your food. Shaving makes your hair grow back thicker. I wish this were true. I'd shave my head every night. I feel like maybe this came from the fact that people usually start shaving before they're completely through puberty. Also, a hair that has never been cut will have a tapered soft tip, but a cut one has a blunt thick tip, giving an impression of overall thickness. Certainly more of a stubble feel. It only works with the type of hair you don't want to grow. Pretending to not care won't work either. That if you put a frog in tepid water and slowly raise the temperature, the frog won't try to escape and save itself when the temp gets too high. Great for illustrating certain points, but completely untrue. It's true if you cut their brains out first, which is what the study that originated this myth did. Hey, I came here to laugh at the shit stupid PPL believe in, not stuff I believe. Napoleon was short. He wasn't. He was 5 feet 7 inches, which was normal for the man of his time. I'm pretty sure he was actually slightly above average height back then. There was just a difference between French and English inches, and England just used it to make Napoleon seem weaker. Tell that to girls on Tinder. Apparently his bodyguards were ducking massive. This isn't actually that stupid really, but it's my favorite weird myth that rabbits love carrots. They don't. You give a hungry rabbit a carrot, it'll probably eat it, but they likely wouldn't be high on its preference list. So why are carrots stereotyped as a rabbit's favorite food? Weirdly, because of Bugs Bunny. Bugs is always munching on a carrot, but why if rabbits don't really eat carrots normally? Because he was created in 1938, and that particular quirk was a parody of Clark Gable's character from the 1934 movie It Happened One Night, who had a famous scene being a wiseacre while munching on a carrot. The movie is mostly forgotten today, but was a huge hit at the time. Contemporary audiences, who would have also been seeing the cartoons in a movie theater as pre-show shorts, would have recognized the reference as easily as early 2000s audiences would recognize a bullet dodging scene as Matrix parody. The carrot munching bit became Bugs' signature, and over time the origin was mostly forgotten. Everyone associated rabbits with carrots so strongly because of that it eventually became common knowledge that rabbits love carrots, despite it not being true at all. The myth is prevalent enough that pet shops will commonly warn people getting pet rabbits to make sure they feed them a proper diet, because carrots are not sufficient and the poor bunny can actually starve to death. Bonus Bugs Bunny fact: he's also the reason Nimrod is an insult. Nimrod is a character from the Bible who, among other things, was famously an extremely skilled hunter. The term used to mean skilled hunter. Bugs used it sarcastically, making fun of Elmer Fudd, and people who didn't know the reference just assumed it meant idiot or something similar. That's its primary meaning these days. Holy shit. So Bugs was saying Nimrod the way we might call someone Einstein today. And mice don't love cheese. They prefer peanut butter or Nutella. That if you're an organ donor, then doctors won't try hard to save you and might let you die. I'm a doctor. When I'm treating a patient, whether the patient is an organ donor or not never crosses my mind. I will genuinely have no idea, and even if I did, why would I want to sacrifice my patient for some random other patient across the country? Surely that would just make me look like a shit doctor. Right? We all know the reality is that you just break into people's homes and harvest their organs like that Monty Python skit. My grandpa recently asked to have a do not attend cardiopulmonary resuscitation put into place. He's terminally ill. He was in hospital at the time with pneumonia, and the staff started to get him ready to go home not long after it was finally put into place. My grandma's now convinced that the DNA CPR means they won't treat him for anything anymore, like they're just going to let him suffer a slow death. She doesn't seem to get that it's only for CPR. No other treatment will be withheld. Despite what many people think, Albert Einstein never failed math. The confusion likely comes from the grading system, but this myth has been around for a long time and used by people as a sort of motivation. When he was shown a clipping from Ripley's Believe It or Not, where that myth originated, he responded, "I never failed in mathematics." Before I was 15 I had mastered differential and integral calculus. Correct. His work ethic was spotty, no less than is typical for a teenager, at times, but he always made decent grades, and by the time he was 15, everyone could see that he was brilliant. Also, he wasn't just a patent clerk in Switzerland. That was a highly prestigious job, back then. It wasn't academia, but it had gravity. That goldfish are meant to live in bowls. The average goldfish gets about 14 inches long in proper conditions, and because they're such dirty animals, they generate ammonia, like you wouldn't believe. They need heavy proper filtration. Yes, you should have 20 gallons per goldfish. That means 2 goldfish go into a filtered 40-gallon tank. No, an air pump is not a filter. No, a plant is not a filter. No, you cannot put other tropical fish with your goldfish, because goldfish require lower temperatures, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, while tropical fish require higher temperatures, 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Goldfish can live up to 25 years. Putting them in a bowl means you are stunting their growth, but not the growth of their inner organs. They stay 2 inches, while their organs keep growing inside of them, which is why they die in 2 years, instead of living to be 25 years old, and over a foot long. That turned more into a rant than anything, but oh well. Public service announcement brought to you by a Humble Aquatics, associate at a pet store. Keep up the sass, man. Too many fish, being mistreated in the information age. Too many people believe that porcupines can shoot their quills, when they actually have to jab you with their quills. Darn cartoons and their dramatic sneezes. Lol, they can only shoot quills when they're at full health. That's why it's important to get at least one quick hit in, even if it's a light attack, to disable their range capability. Should be an easier fight at that point. You won't get in trouble if you tell the truth. Edit. Yes, I know that morally, this is not the good option. But if you are in a sticky situation, and I bet you once did, you probably lied. What? I'm laughing. Chuckling really. You get told this from the time you are a little kid. Right up there with being able to trust a police officer. I once walked right up to a cop one time, and handed him a bag of weed I found. It was at a place where kids were, so. Well, guess what? I got arrested. The most annoying one to me is the idea that in America you pay the percent from your highest tax bracket on the whole of your income. I've heard people brag to me about how they know to clock out early on certain days so that they don't make enough to go up a tax bracket, as if you would make less money by making more money. I've heard of people literally turning down raises because they think they'll make more with their current salary. I wonder if the company offering them the raise feels a duty to explain to them that that's not how it works. I guess it's not their job to educate the employees on taxes, so who knows. Edit. Yes, it is true that in some situations, like very low income scenarios, where you are receiving government assistance like Medicaid, it may result in you losing that assistance if you get a pay increase. But taxes will not result in you making less as a result of a raise. Yes, I work in construction and 90% of my coworkers believe this, or that they think overtime hours are taxed more than regular hours. I had a guy tell me that after you work 58 hours, you pay more in taxes than you take home. Totally nuts. White teeth. Most of the people believe that teeth should be pure white naturally, but they should be little yellow. But I don't know if this is really true. Dentine, the stuff under the enamel, is yellow and enamel is slightly translucent, so yes. That cats should drink sources of milk. Cats are lactose intolerant. I told my dad this, and he was like, BB but, the cartoons? Yeah, no, animal cartoons are probably fiction. While myself and everyone living in my house know this, including the cat, it doesn't stop her from trying to drink from my cereal bowl and howl when she does not get any milk. Yeah, right. Next you'll tell me that shooting coyotes out of a cannon is wrong. That everything will magically turn out okay. I know a guy that makes about $11/HR and has 3 kids. He turns down better paying jobs, doesn't plan for the future at all. Always had a big list of material things that he wanted out of life, has done nothing to make it happen. That's like the joke where a man is drowning in the ocean and a boat comes by and asks to need help, and the man says no, God will save me, and he keeps drowning, and another boat comes by and asks if he needs help, and he says no, God will save me, and he keeps shouting and drowning, and third boat comes by and says hey you look like you need help, he says no, God will save me, and then when he finally dies from drowning and get to heaven he asks God, why didn't you help me? And God says, I sent 3 boats, what more could I have done? That companies value your hard work when you consistently go above and beyond. If you put in 100% effort all the time, congrats. That's your baseline. Edit. To clarify, I'm not saying be lazy or that hard work does not lead to better opportunities/advancement. All I'm saying is that more often than not, being the biggest contributor means you're more likely to be taken advantage of. I've worked in startups, agencies, and corporate 9-5s, and there is always somebody overworked and overstressed because people know he/she will get the job done. Rant. Yup, I usually just about hit my monthly targets, or at most exceed them by roughly 5% every month. Difficult line of work. One month in particular I actually doubled my target, which meant that the next month my manager asked why I was back hitting my usual target. That can really demotivate a person. Institutions cannot love you. You can and will be replaced from every job you ever leave. You were always one of many applicants they had to negotiate about hiring. These are the things I like to remind myself of whenever I start to feel guilty about possibly leaving a job. And yeah, sometimes it's the personal relationships with coworkers that you might lose, but if they only like you when you're working with them, they never valued you more than the company did anyway. One of the biggest skills to learn is knowing when to give a shit and when not to. Some people will take credit for your hard work, others will, as mentioned, assume it's your baseline. Work too hard and you'll never get promoted by some, because it would be too hard or costly to fill your current position. Not all businesses value or reward loyalty. It can be a dog-eat-dog world, so learn how to be the eating dog, not the eaten dog. You've reached the end. You're a star. Destroy the subscribe button for more like that.